Imagine standing in the dark, cold desert of New Mexico. It is the early hours of July 16, 1945. A heavy storm has just passed, leaving a tense silence in the air. Inside a concrete bunker, men are sweating despite the chill. A countdown echoes through the speakers. 10, 9, 8. At the center of this tension is a thin man with hollow cheekbones and piercing blue eyes. He is chain-smoking, his heart pounding so hard he can feel it in his throat. 3, 2, 1. Suddenly the sky is torn apart by a flash of light brighter than 1,000 suns. The desert sand melts into green glass. A mushroom cloud violently claws its way into the heavens. In that blinding, terrifying moment, human history is split in two. The world would never be the same. And the thin man, watching the fire, Julius Robert Oppenheimer, knew exactly what he had unleashed. As he stared into the apocalyptic inferno, a line from the ancient Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita, flashed through his mind. "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." But who was this man? How did a poet, a philosopher, and a theoretical physicist become the father of the most devastating weapon ever conceived? This is the story of a genius who captured the fire of the gods, only to be burned by its flames. Julius Robert Oppenheimer was not born a warrior or a general. He was born into a world of immense wealth and intellectual privilege in New York City in 1904. His family's apartment on the Upper West Side was filled with original paintings by Van Gogh and Picasso. Young Robert was a fragile, introverted boy. He did not play sports or run with the neighborhood children. Instead, he collected rocks, read poetry, and immersed himself in science. By the age of 12, he was already delivering lectures at the New York Mineralogical Club. He was a prodigy, but his brilliance came with a shadow of deep melancholy and isolation. He attended Harvard University, tearing through his studies in chemistry, physics, and philosophy. But it was when he traveled to Europe to study at Cambridge University that the darker corners of his mind began to reveal themselves. Oppenheimer was notoriously clumsy in the laboratory, preferring the elegant world of theoretical physics over hands-on experiments. His tutor at Cambridge, Patrick Blackett, constantly pushed him to do laboratory work, driving Oppenheimer to the edge of a nervous breakdown. In a moment of bizarre and dark desperation, Oppenheimer laced an apple with toxic chemicals and left it on Blackett's desk. Fortunately, the tutor did not eat it. The university found out, and Oppenheimer barely escaped criminal charges, being ordered to see a psychiatrist instead. He was diagnosed with dementia praecox, an archaic term for schizophrenia, though today we might recognize it as severe depression and anxiety. Seeking a fresh start, he moved to the University of Göttingen in Germany, the absolute epicenter of the quantum physics revolution. There, he finally found his tribe. Surrounded by minds like Werner Heisenberg and Niels Bohr, Oppenheimer thrived. He was brilliant, eccentric, and incredibly fast at grasping complex concepts. He returned to the United States as a scientific rock star, taking a position at the University of California, Berkeley. At Berkeley, Oppenheimer was more than just a professor. He was a charismatic leader. Students imitated his mannerisms, his way of walking, and even the way he held his ever-present cigarette. He drove fast cars, mixed perfect martinis, read Sanskrit, and engaged deeply with left-wing political causes. He was a man of the world, deeply concerned with the rise of fascism in Europe. But his political associations, particularly with members of the Communist Party, would plant the seeds for his future destruction. Then came the Second World War. In 1939, Albert Einstein signed a letter warning President Franklin D. Roosevelt that Nazi Germany had discovered nuclear fission and could potentially build an atomic bomb. The thought of Adolf Hitler possessing a weapon of absolute annihilation terrified the world. The United States government knew they had to get there first. They needed a leader for a top-secret initiative that would be known as the Manhattan Project. Despite his lack of a Nobel Prize and his questionable political background, the military director of the project, General Leslie Groves, chose Oppenheimer. Groves saw something in the physicist that others missed. He saw a man with the towering ambition and the commanding intellect necessary to herd the world's most brilliant and eccentric scientists. Oppenheimer chose a remote boys' school in the mountains of Los Alamos, New Mexico, to be the site of this massive secret laboratory. In a matter of months, a hidden city was built. Thousands of scientists, engineers, and their families moved to the desert, completely isolated from the outside world. Oppenheimer was the mayor, the sheriff, and the guiding spirit of this secret world. He pushed himself to the absolute limit, working endless hours, his weight dropping to a skeletal 115 pounds. The pressure was unimaginable. They were racing against a ticking clock, believing the Nazis were right on their heels. But as the war in Europe drew to a close and Germany surrendered in May 1945, the original motivation for the bomb disappeared. Yet the momentum of the Manhattan Project was unstoppable. The weapon was nearly complete, and the war in the Pacific against Japan was raging with brutal casualties. The scientists began to question what they were doing. Some signed petitions to stop the use of the bomb, but Oppenheimer kept them focused. He convinced himself and others that demonstrating the weapon was the only way to end the war and prevent all future wars. He believed that the sheer horror of the atomic bomb would make war unthinkable forever. This brings us back to that dark morning in July 1945, the Trinity test. The weapon worked. It worked beyond their most terrifying calculations. Less than a month later, on August 6, 1945, a uranium bomb named Little Boy was dropped on the Japanese city of Hiroshima. 3 days later, a plutonium bomb named Fat Man was dropped on Nagasaki. The devastation was absolute. Hundreds of thousands of men, women, and children were instantly vaporized or condemned to agonizing deaths from radiation poisoning. The Empire of Japan surrendered. The war was over. In the United States, Oppenheimer was hailed as a national hero. He was on the cover of magazines, celebrated as the man who saved countless American lives. But inside, Oppenheimer was deeply tormented. The theoretical had become horrifyingly real. When he met with President Harry Truman in the Oval Office shortly after the bombings, Oppenheimer quietly confessed, "Mr. President, I feel I have blood on my hands." Truman was disgusted by the remark, later calling Oppenheimer a crybaby scientist and demanding he never be allowed in his office again. After the war, Oppenheimer became the chairman of the General Advisory Committee of the Atomic Energy Commission. He used his immense influence to try and control the monster he had helped create. He vehemently opposed the development of the hydrogen bomb, a weapon thousands of times more powerful than the ones dropped on Japan. He argued for international arms control and openness between nations. But the political climate in America had changed. The Cold War had begun. The Soviet Union tested their own atomic bomb in 1949, and paranoia swept through the United States. Senator Joseph McCarthy and the Red Scare cast a dark shadow of suspicion over anyone with past leftist ties. Oppenheimer's enemies, particularly those who wanted to build the hydrogen bomb, saw an opportunity to destroy him. In 1954, at the height of anti-communist hysteria, Oppenheimer was subjected to a grueling and deeply unfair security hearing. His entire life was put under a microscope. His past associations with communists, his relationships, and his opposition to the hydrogen bomb were used as evidence that he was a security risk. His private letters were read aloud, his friends were forced to testify against him, and he was relentlessly interrogated. The man who gave America the atomic bomb, the man who had worked himself to the bone for his country, was stripped of his security clearance. He was publicly humiliated and exiled from the inner circles of government science. It was a brutal betrayal. The message was clear. The government wanted the scientists to build the weapons, but they did not want them to have a voice in how those weapons were used. Oppenheimer spent his remaining years as the director of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton. He continued to lecture and write about the intersection of science and society, but those who knew him said he was a broken man. The spark in his piercing blue eyes had dimmed. He died of throat cancer in 1967 at the age of 62. J. Robert Oppenheimer remains one of the most complex and tragic figures in human history. He was a brilliant dreamer who unlocked the most fundamental secrets of the universe, only to hand the keys of annihilation to the politicians and the generals. His story is a chilling reminder of the heavy price of scientific progress when it is divorced from moral responsibility. He gave humanity the power to destroy itself, a shadow that still hangs over every single one of us today. If you found this journey into the mind of the father of the atomic bomb fascinating, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel. We will be exploring more famous and mysterious figures who altered the course of history in the darkest and most incredible ways. Let me know in the comments below. Do you think Oppenheimer was a hero or a villain? Thank you for watching, and see you in the next mystery.